Hello and welcome to today's video. Now today I have got a very special bike in front of me, and I've also got my good friend Rick Parkington, and I do believe this is probably his favourite motorcycle. So today he's going to take us for a little tour around it and tell us a little bit about it. So it doesn't look like you're going to be riding this bike anywhere at the moment. Why is that?
Well, I had a bit of an unfortunate run-in with a car. The car came off a bit more successfully than I did and dislocated my arm, and got a bit of trouble moving that at the moment. Got a bit of a broken leg here, but I'm gluing back together slowly, so it should be fine.
You're on the mend.
Yeah. The bike will take a bit longer, but yeah, it'll get there.
So what is it we've got in front of us?
Well, this is a Rex Acme that I made for a fairly limited amount of time in Coventry. Started around 1921. I think they're an amalgamation of Rex, which was a very famous name in the early days of the British motorcycle industry, so the 1900s. By 1921 they'd faded a little bit. They combined with a near neighbour, Coventry Acme, to make Rex Acme. And they're just one of many small companies that basically they made their own frame, they fitted an engine from somewhere else, forks from somewhere else, wheel hubs from somewhere else, so they're all kind of made up out of bits and pieces basically. But what really did it for Rex Acme is they started to win TTs, took a second place in 1922. After that they incorporated the Isle of Man three legs design into their emblem, and in 1925 they won 2 TTs in 1 week, which was kind of unheard of, and done by their rider Wal Handley, who was a superhero of the day really. So he won the 250cc race, no, the 350 and the 175 race, and he was leading the 250cc race until he blew up, so he nearly won 3 races.
Crikey.
So all of a sudden for Rex Acme, big name.
Yeah.
They didn't even make a 500, so they couldn't have been in the 500 race, so they pretty nearly cleaned up in everything they entered. So
Brilliant.
So that did a lot for them. This bike is from 1927. The thing with vintage bikes is when you get what we call the flat tanker, where the tank goes underneath the top tube of the frame, that design started in the original days from when it was basically a bicycle frame, and it continued pretty much until 1928. That was the year it all changed, and that doesn't sound like a very big difference, just changing the petrol tank, but in actual fact what happened was everything changed at the same time.
Right.
They started to think, well, hang on, these wheels are getting a bit spindly, a bit like a bicycle, bigger wheels. Actually the engines are quite powerful, need some heavier tubes in the frame. And what typically happened was bikes like this were little whippets of things, so quite quick, very light, good handling, suddenly piled on the beef. And it was a real sort of middle-aged spread, and you basically got the same engine, but the bike now weighs half as much again.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Suddenly they weren't quite such exciting things. So 1927 is really the end of the flat tank era, and by that time they got them pretty sorted. This one, Rex used to use Blackburn Engines, which is a great favourite of mine. Blackburn Engines were made in Surrey. This particular bike started out as a standard sports model in 1927, and I always think, you know, I started riding in the 1980s, and at that time the Yamaha two-strokes were kind of king, particularly the LC Yamahas and stuff. And I always think it kind of helps put this into perspective if you think this is actually the LC Yamaha of the 1920s.
Right.
It was a fast, lightweight, very good handling, very good braking. And the crazy thing about it is when you ride a bike like this now, particularly on a racetrack, it is still blindingly good.
Yeah.
It's a staggeringly good bike for something that is nearly 100 years old, you know. It's just a crazy thing. But partly what makes it the way it is, they'd really gone to town with this specification of it. Obviously the front brake looks tiny, I know it looks a bit of a joke, but it is actually a very good brake, and for a lightweight bike it's fine. In the 1920s people were very afraid of slipping off on the rough roads of the day.
Right.
So generally you didn't have a fantastic front brake, people were a bit scared of it. Instead you had a good back brake. And you can see with that it's quite a big brake for the 1920s. It's the same sort of size as fitted in the 50s and 60s, so good brakes. The frame itself is a very sturdy design. You've got there's a sort of double rail under the tank here that goes all the way along to the back wheel. That braced the whole frame very well. Gearbox on this one is a close ratio racing Berman gearbox, 3-speed. There's an ML Magneto on here, and the carburettor is an AMAC TT carburettor, so the track racing carburettor of the day. So you're getting all the best of the gear when you bought one of these.
Right.
But this bike has actually been modified even further from its standard spec. It was built by a man called Guy Newman, who was a Brooklands rider in the 30s and also TT rider and stuff like that. Not a massively famous guy, but he was there and he did it.
This makes this is the real deal then.
Yeah, really. I mean, it was never ridden at Brooklands or anything, but he was a Brooklands rider, and the legend has it that he was at a sprint meeting, and there was a Rex Acme that used to sprint in the 60s that looked basically similar to this, and he really fell for it. And he was talking to his mate and said, "God, it's a really pretty little bicycle. I really like that." And his mate said, "Oh, I've got a Rex Acme. Do you want to do a deal?" And he acquired it. And Guy basically converted this bike to look the same as that famous one of the times, but he never kind of finished it. I think as he got older, he probably realised that he wasn't going to race it again, and as a result, he just sort of slowed down a bit, did a little bit here and a bit there. And when he died, it went to the hands of a younger friend of his, who also didn't do very much, because I think, out of respect for Guy, he didn't feel he could really finish the work off.
Yeah, understandable.
And he then actually sold the bike, and I was lucky enough to buy it and finished it. And we had a bit of an emotional thing really, because there was a Brooklands day coming up, and I got the bike all ready for it, and I got in touch with the guy I bought it from and said, "Do you want to meet me there? And we'll see if we can get you a ride on it and stuff." And it was a lovely thing, because he'd known this bike since 1959 when Guy had it, and suddenly there he was riding it and stuff, and it was just he said, "You know, I'm really pleased you've ended up with it, you're the right person to have it and stuff." And
brilliant.
Of course that's what this is about really.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So obviously this is a Handshift motorcycle. Explain to us a little bit about that.
Okay, yeah, I mean it's basically pretty straightforward. I mean, you know, much like a car really, you've got your gear lever on the side here. Other than that, you just use the clutch normally. The clutch is on the same handlebar as a more modern bike. The difficulty of it people always encounter is how you find the gear lever in a hurry.
Yes, yeah.
And to that I always say it's a bit like if you walk into your house in the dark, you just reach out and find the light switch. But you couldn't do it in my house, and I couldn't do it in yours.
Yep.
So when you're familiar, you don't actually have to look for it anymore, you just reach for it and you get it straight away.
So you've explained to us that you've got a Handshift, but you haven't got a twist throttle on there either, so
yes.
What's that about?
Well, we need to make it even more complicated, we can't have it easy. So on here, the 1920s carburettors, not so much this one, but you had to not only adjust your throttle, but you also had to adjust sort of the fuel supply.
Right.
So you kind of are more or less adjusting the air and the fuel. As somebody put it in modern terms, it's like being your own power commander. It's one of these sort of fuel injection things. So you tend to have to open these levers together. This one isn't so bad, because on this bike it's really like a more conventional choke. So you'd normally just have it fully open, the choke, and then operate it on the throttle by operating this lever here. That looks really complicated to do, but the key to them is always to set them up so you can operate it more or less like a twist grip, so you're really just hooking it with your thumb and doing it like that just by moving your hand. It's got total loss oil lubrication, which means that the oil doesn't get recirculated around the engine, it goes into the engine and then it sort of leaks out or burns off.
Right.
The advantage of that is that you're constantly getting a supply of clean oil. The disadvantage of it is, in practice, it means you've just got a very small amount of very dirty oil in the engine. It's getting hotter and hotter. So if I'm on a track, I turn that up a bit so it pumps through a bit more oil and it burns and leaks more, and then that means at least it's quite fresh.
Right.
Some of the older bikes had like a hand pump, and you just had to basically pump that every now and again. Sounds drastic, but it's not really like running around with an oil can, because of the fact you have got that oil in the engine.
Yeah.
So you're just topping it up really, to sort of make up for what's burned off. So it's not a panic, you know, if you don't press it every 5 seconds it's going to seize up, anything like that. Just have to remember it from time to time. This one actually has a little oil pump down here, which just creates its own drip feed system. So that's just dripping away about, I think it's like 4 or 6 drops a mile or something like that.
Right, so actually a minute amount in comparison to what you might think.
Yeah. It's not getting through gallons. I mean, I have been known to get through a tank full on a track thing, but that's really wound really up and it's smoking like hell. But it's cheaper to do that than to run risk of blowing up the motor, really.
Yeah.
The tank's especially made for this bike. It would have been a wider tank originally, that's why the gear change sticks out here a little bit. But this was a sprint tank, and the oil tank was made for it at the same time.
Yes, really nice lines from the top, and they're long, slim, just like a T shape. It's really very smart.
This is the thing I love about them. They are so slender and very purposeful, and the further back in time you go with bikes like this, the less you see on them that isn't actually there for a particular reason. There's no little styling gimmicks and bits and pieces clipped on. The knob here is a steering damper to sort of control steering wobble. Not that you ever get it on one of these, but
Yes, everything is stylish but also functional. It's
yeah,
very
yeah.
purpose-built machine, but very pretty at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's it. They managed to get the look of it just right. They were obviously on it with the design, but not to the extent of taking the design over the function of the vehicle. Which is,
yeah.
it's pretty important, I think.
Right, well, a massive thank you for telling us about your bike and showing us around it, and I hope you'll be back on it soon.
Well, yeah, so do I. In fact, actually, maybe there's something we ought to check. Just grab hold of that a sec. I'm not sure whether this leg's going to bend enough to get on these rear sets yet. We'll give it a try. First attempt.
Excellent. Ready
Going
to
to be
go.
fine, I think. Isn't it?
So you're back to it soon enough.
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent. Well, Rick's back on the bike. But that's it for today. A massive thank you to you guys for watching. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you've got any questions about the bike, any questions about Rick, leave us a comment below and I'll get back to you. And some food for thought, I've had a couple of comments asking me about me. Is that something you guys want to know about? Would you be interested in a Q&A, or perhaps a little bit about my bike history, how I got into working on bikes, how I got into riding bikes? Let me know, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up.